It certainly feels like e-mobility is having a moment, and it's shaping up to be a crucial turning point for the energy transition. Welcome to the Smarter E podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Gifford. Over the next few weeks, we'll be rolling out a special series of the pod recorded on site at the Smarter E Europe in Munich this year. And you might have noticed we've refreshed our theme music for the series also. Last week, we brought you some of the highlights of the 24/7 renewable energy study and exhibition in a special recap episode. And this week, with oil prices only beginning to return to kind of vaguely normal levels, many households and businesses have taken a closer look at e-mobility. And with a growing range of electric cars, trucks, scooters, and buses available on the market and at attractive price points, they like what they see. Importantly, a major rethink in the way EVs of all shapes and sizes interact with the electricity network is underway, and it's having a profound impact on how variable renewable energy sources can be integrated into our grids. To explore these issues, I have two guests on the podcast today. From the Netherlands, we'll hear about the innovative ways the network operator, government, and EV charging providers are utilizing the growing number of batteries on wheels to get the most out of the grid. Petrouschka Werther is the Director of Sustainable Mobility for the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management. But first, we'll hear from a true EV charging pioneer, and he's actually a returning guest. Thomas Raffeiner has spent more than or close to 2 decades developing and providing smart EV charging technology and business models, and shares his first-hand experience and why he believes now is the most exciting time for e-mobility adoption. If you're listening to or watching the Smarter E podcast for the first time, please subscribe, follow, or leave a rating or review. And as always, you can get in touch with us anytime at podcast@thesmartere.com. At the Smarter E 2026, it's pretty hot and steamy, but there's also a lot of energy driving e-mobility. And it's a combination of international factors, energy prices, and also innovation that's driving a lot of activity here. And I'm very pleased to be joined by one of the pioneers of the e-mobility space, Thomas Raffeiner. He's the CEO and founder of the Mobility House. Welcome to the Smarter E podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you're actually a guest on our podcast series that we made last year here. And it's great to have you back again because there's been a series of developments within the Mobility House. First of all, an acquisition that was announced just last week. What can you tell me about that?
Yes, indeed. The weather changed. It got more hotter, and also in the industry, a lot of stuff happened. And last week, we announced that we will sell our charging business for fleets into a French big group, Edenred is its name. They run, I think, something like 2 million cars. Great company. And they're going to electrify. Their customers are going to electrify. And this is why they thought it's a good idea to join forces with Mobility House. And that's what we did.
And why the fleet business? Why did you decide to spin off that part?
It's the charging business only, if I may say, because we believed and we still believe in the energy business, and we still will do the energy supply for these fleets for Edenred in the future. So we sold off the installation, the turnkey business, that they can be more effective in electrifying their fleets or the fleets of their customers. And once they need a kilowatt or a kilowatt hour or a photon turned into electron, they will go to us and we will do that part for Edenred.
So it was really the hardware part of the business.
Exactly.
Because fleet charging is a really exciting part of electrification. Why do you think that's the case as well?
Oh, absolutely. We believe in fleet electrification. Actually, the employee of the month is Donald Trump. He helps people to electrify, and his friend Benjamin Netanyahu supports that. So everybody's afraid of power prices, everybody's afraid of diesel, everybody's afraid of shortage, not just the price. So people are electrifying more and faster. We see that trend. And this is why we not just believe in electrification for fleets, but we see actually a bigger and a quicker momentum in doing that. So nevertheless, the charging part and the turnkey stuff is a different business. Our North Star always was, as you know, zero charging a car at zero cost with causing zero emissions. And this is the focus of Mobility House. And we still do that. And the charging part can quicker, more efficient, grow with Edenred, so we will get more fleets under management sooner. That's the rationale for the deal.
And of course, the employee of the month was relating to the Strait of Hormuz and the energy crisis we're in. And of course, it's the second energy crisis that we've had in the last 5 years.
Yes, I mean, look, and that's why I wear shorts today. I mean, we will reach 40 degrees this year, first time in Switzerland. So the thing is heating up, and we knew that since 30 years. We just didn't react. And we didn't learn. And also on the energy crisis, I mean, we had the Ukraine Krieg, or we still have it, by the way. So we didn't learn. We didn't learn that we are dependent on gas. We didn't learn that somebody, it can be a country, it can be a war, it can be a commercial agreement between China and Taiwan. Anything can happen anytime, right? So we need to get more independent geopolitically, and these renewables are the answer to that. So again, we are trapped because of another incident. And by the way, there will be another incident in the future. Hopefully this will be solved by then, Ukraine and Iran. But there will be another one. And then we just will fall into the same pitfall. So use the renewable energy that we have, produce as much energy as you can on your rooftop or somewhere out there, store it in a battery, and then we are independent and have a cheaper and better solution. So it's obvious, but you're absolutely right. The Strait of Hormuz is another example of not reacting and entering blindly in such a situation unnecessarily.
Well, actually, in Ukraine, we're seeing long-distance drone strikes on Russia's energy infrastructure, right?
Yes.
Therefore, demonstrating again its vulnerability.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not just energy; it's also data. Imagine that you have a fraud in a system, in a bigger system. You can immediately shut down energy supply, which is much harder if you have a very decentralized regime in your roof in your house. The threat and the risk is much lower. It's very much harder to attack a decentralized system of many cars, many houses, rather than big transformer stations or big power plants. So there are more benefits, just like the price, rather than the price. It's safer, it's cheaper, and at the end of the day, I mean, we have a better life.
Well, and how do you respond then to people who say you're kind of trading one dependency on another, right? Trading the dependency on molecules from the Middle East or from oil-producing regions to clean energy hardware, solar and batteries that come from the Far East.
I would challenge your statement. I think it's not replacing one regime with another one, which has the same disadvantages. I would much more argue we will replace a dependency with an independency. So the only thing that we have still, obviously, is we have to have those components. Here you might say, well, these things are coming, solar panels are coming from China and electric cars are coming from China. So you are still dependent on China. In this sense, you're right. We will not. I don't see a planet without being independent from Chinese supply chains, cars and batteries. So you're right. On the energy itself, the moment it's installed, you're independent. You don't depend on somebody else.
And in terms of fleets, to bring it kind of full circle again, it's a purely economic and security decision as opposed to vehicles in the family home where people can have an emotional attachment to it.
Absolutely. It's very simple. I mean, fleet managers, and we know many of them. We have now, 4,000 fleets under management. That's a lot. Across the globe, a ton in the US, Asia, Singapore airport, Thailand airport. So a lot of very, important infrastructure elements. that now go electric, and they say at the end of the day, look, number one, we have sun, we have renewables, and number two, what's the cost per mile? And the cost per mile with an electric car it's simply cheaper. So it's undoubtable that the volatility is lower. So it's not like gas goes up or diesel go down. The sun shines, so fill your car, and you know what you paid for your solar system. So fill it with your own solar system, and then you know what you're paying. And we are really talking now prices where we are getting close to zero. So I'm not saying charging is for free yet for fleets, but it's getting very close to that. If you give us the flexibility of this pool of cars during the weekend, we can make some money with those vehicles, and we get some arbitrage from the energy markets, and we share this revenue or this profit with you, and then you're at zero. So you don't pay for charging without any risk or without any limitation on your mobility requirements. And I think this is a great deal. You know, you don't pay for charging. It's free. It doesn't cause emissions, and you have it in-house if you wish. So I don't see your scenario. You replace dependency A and dependency B. Independency B is yourself. So get it right, and then you're not dependent on anybody.
Well, another big change, in particular from when you founded the Mobility House 15 years ago, is this volatility in the electricity market.
Exactly.
And while that causes a lot of headaches for some, and low solar capture rates is a nightmare really for solar developers, if you're playing with vehicle to grid, if you're playing with charging infrastructure, if you're playing with e-mobility, it's actually an asset.
Absolutely, absolutely. Everybody or many people see it as a threat. We see this as an opportunity. And since the batteries are there sitting around anyway, use this asset that has been paid for and decrease the risk of grids instability and in investment in grids. So because people still think if you have more electric cars, we need more solar power or we need more grid. The opposite is true. Manage the cars properly and you don't need more. Just use the stuff that you have. So you're absolutely right. The paradigm of that's a problem. An electric car is causing instability is just not true.
Well, another thing that electric cars can do, which is an asset rather than a risk, and this is what we addressed with the episode last year when we had Jared Reed joining as well, is that there's an ability to debottle electricity networks as well, right?
Absolutely.
To be able to free up capacity, particularly when there's either a lot of solar or just not enough capacity.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing that in Netherlands in particular, and we'll feature some more details about that. This is vehicle to grid capabilities.
Absolutely.
What stage of development are we at with vehicle to grid?
Finally, I should say, I said that before, but finally, I should say after 15 years, it's happening. There were some bottlenecks around the technology. There were some bottlenecks, particularly in Germany, about regulatory frameworks. They didn't basically allow us to do it. We did it in France, as you know, with Renault last year, or 2 years ago, actually. So that has been solved. People and politicians start to understand that this makes sense, and it's good for the economy and the ecosystem overall. Number two is, we have now chargers, bidirectional chargers that were about $10,000 a unit, and now we are at the same cost as a AC unidirectional charger. So very cheap. And all the cars, that's number two. And number three is all the cars are bidirectional. And we made some big announcement, as you know, with very big car manufacturers. And also another one is coming in now with Toyota, it's Volkswagen, it's Mercedes. They're all bidirectional. And they all understand that if they can use the car as part of the energy regime and as part of the solution for their customers, for their car users, it will be beneficial also for them and they will sell more cars. And that's where we are. So I think the Gordic knot, isn't the Gordic knot, is almost done, and we will see a lot of V2G applications in many, many countries. Again, China is doing it and is probably the role model on that, but Europe will follow. I'm very positive about that.
And the car makers are now comfortable enough to allow that to happen? Because of course, previously they were afraid that their batteries would get kind of decimated by all this cycling being plugged into the grid.
Absolutely, there's this range anxiety of all the the customers, the mobility, the car users. Who will I end up at home, or can I make it to the hospital? I think that's past now. I think everybody who drives an electric car has no range anxiety. I don't have it at all. So that's one. And there was also the battery anxiety. What has happened to my battery? Will it harm my battery? Will I run out of warranty? So we had to answer that question to all the car makers. And believe me, as you said, they're asking very critical questions for good reasons, of course. Don't fool around with my battery. And we proved to all the car makers that actually the opposite is true. We don't just not harm the battery, but we improve the lifetime of the battery. How can that be? Because by managing the battery, by not filling it up right away, and by keeping the battery in a state of charge that is more beneficial. If it's hot, don't fill it. That is more beneficial to the battery, so we can basically extend the lifetime of the battery. And that was also a key argument for our fleet customers. Obviously, we do the postal services, as you know. We fill them in the Monday morning. We fill and empty them during Sunday when there is more than enough energy. And by now, we don't see any degradation of any batteries that we are managing so far.
Okay, well, you mentioned energy management when it's hot. It's sweltering in here. We need a bit of energy management for some air conditioning. So just to round out this conversation, the home is also crucial, right?
Yes.
So when there is this second energy shock, as we said, when a homeowner buys an EV, the solar then must be an absolute no-brainer for them. But then there's also a lot of electrical devices in the home. So then there's cool things you can do in terms of how the EV interrelates with the home as a kind of mini electricity network. What are you doing there?
Absolutely. When we are asking our customers, are you interested in VGI or VDG? They say, what is it? I don't know. But if you ask them the same question, say, hey, you have a PV. By the way, 80% of the German car owners, 80% have a PV at home. So PV and electric mobility go together very well, obviously. It's obvious. So if you ask them, are you interested to be autark, to be independent, to feed your own power from your home or from your roof into your car and back at night? Everyone says yes. And this is exactly what we do. My roof, my house, my car, including your devices, if you have a small battery included, if you have a heat pump included. But the key components really are your PV and your car, because a car is usually 10 times bigger than a home storage and more efficient, can use more cycles. So there is a lot of advantages on the vehicle side. But still, we integrate all of them. And then we have basically a scenario where you say, okay, if you do that, and if we can still use the flexibility of your vehicle, then we provide you with zero energy costs for home. So you don't pay for not just for charging, but also you don't pay for your electricity supply at home, and you are independent. Funny enough, if you I wouldn't mention the brand here, but if you ask a Skoda driver, for example, he says, "Well, reduce my bill. That's important." If you ask another customer from a Star or Porsche, he says, "Well, that's nice, but can I be autark? Does it bring me over the night?" There was a big incident in Berlin last winter, if you remember.
Of course.
After that, people called us up and say, hey, I want this stuff. I don't care about the price. I just want to make sure that I have power.
That's when backup power becomes essential.
Backup power.
Yeah.
So that's an application where we thought, well, in the Western world, this might not be an application that might sell, but it does. So another advantage of having your asset used at your house, and the nice thing is it all comes together. You don't have to decide between autarky or cheap energy, because usually if you have to build a diesel generator in your house, it's cheap, it's expensive, it's dirty, So you have your car there. It's good for a week. Come on, use it.
And in an increasingly energy insecure world, which we're seeing with fossil fuels, that becomes extremely valuable.
Exactly. The funny thing is also, if you look at volatility, and obviously there is a pattern, more renewables cause more volatility, but we installed now a very, 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 very big batteries. We are running 1 gigawatts of batteries, of stationary batteries in Europe. We are very big on that. And you can see already in some markets that this has some effects on volatility and this has some effects on prices. So we don't see those spikes at night and we don't see those dips during lunch or during the sun peak. So we see already the effect. We see in these markets, energy is more reliable and cheaper than in others.
Yeah, we've seen it in Australia as well with this battery boom. It's already starting to batteries are pushing gas out of the merit
Exactly.
order, right? Brings down wholesale prices and delivers
Exactly.
stability.
We said we don't talk about politics, but you should tell this to the German Minister of Economics.
I'll do what I can. Thomas Raffeiner, founder and CEO of the Mobility House. I think we need to go outside and cool off. I certainly do. Thank you for watching and thank you for joining the Smartery podcast. Electric mobility is really one of the big themes here at the Smarter E Europe 2026, and it's a great pleasure to be joined by Petrouschka Werther, the Director of Sustainable Mobility for the Netherlands Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management. Petrouschka, thank you for joining the Smarter E podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a great pleasure, and it really is exciting what's happening in the Netherlands when it comes to e-mobility and also how these vehicles are interacting with the electricity network. So, firstly, just let's tap into the motivation a little bit. Why do you think that the Netherlands has been very forward in terms of adopting e-mobility?
Well, from the start we said, well, we don't build any cars. But how can our country profit from the transition towards electric mobility? And we thought, well, we are very good at networks, back office work. So we really focused on charging networks and the integration and setting the standards. So that was very important for the Netherlands.
And the other clean technology story that we're very familiar with in the Netherlands has been the rapid uptake of solar energy. But that's also brought with it challenges in terms of integration into the electricity network itself and grid bottlenecks. Now, in the Netherlands, as I understand it, you've been quite progressive in terms of looking at how e-mobility can help de-bottleneck some of those challenges on the grid.
Well, we've been, I think, successful on three fronts at the same time. The introduction of solar panels on the roofs, the introduction of heat pumps, and the introduction of electric vehicles. At the moment, 10% of vehicles sold in the Netherlands are gasoline cars, and then 45% are EVs, and 45% are plug-in hybrid vehicles. And those are the passenger cars. If you look at the vans, just in 1 year, last year, 50,000 electric vans were sold. And that's already 5% of the market in just 1 year. And we expect a similar uptake for heavy goods vehicles, because the TCO will be, I think, equal within 5 years.
Wow, and buses, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, they are already all electric. So we don't even talk about the buses anymore, because they have been the first pilot market for us, just to test out the concept of what kind of fiscal incentives do you need, how do you work out the charging systems, yes.
Well, I remember when e-mobility was starting to pick up, we heard a lot of concerns about how it will in fact crash the grid, how plugging in all these electric vehicles at once will be too much demand or too much demand in certain places. You're thinking about it very differently in the Netherlands.
Currently, luckily, yes, because we have a huge amount of grid congestion in the Netherlands. If you look at the map of the Netherlands, it's completely red, and red means to say, Houston, we have a problem. And then the first reaction, because I discussed this with my colleagues from the Ministry of Economic Affairs, the energy, they are responsible for the energy, and the Ministry of Housing, and also the power companies and the provinces. And then you have the network that's usually managing the power in the Netherlands. And they said, well, let's just turn off all the chargers for electric vehicles, because we were the last to join the party, so they didn't really like us yet. And I said, no, we can't really do that because we have a responsibility that people who have bought electric vehicles can really rely on what we supply. And I thought, well, we really need to become part of the solution instead of part of the problem. So we looked at the city of Utrecht, because last winter we were really worried that when it would be a cold winter with a lot of misty days, that we wouldn't have enough electricity to provide the heating for the city. So we renegotiated all the CPO contracts. And we asked the CPOs to really make it possible to just tune down. We'll pick it up later. Yeah.
I might just come in with a follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
I can really hear. So what was the last thing you said?
It was about
The CPOs.
The CPOs.
I could interject and ask about this.
Yeah.
What is a CPO? That's a network operator, or DSO sometimes they're called. Is that right? Distribution system operator?
Well, it's actually the provider of the
poles?
public charges along the roads in the
CPOs.
cities.
Okay.
Okay, so that's probably a Dutch term.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. It might be an
I'm not
EV
sure.
term. That
It
I
might
don't know.
be, but I don't know DSOs.
I was standing with it,
Yeah.
so I can cut to the side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you mean by CPOs?
the CPOs are the providers of the public charging system in the cities. It's like a concession. So the regions they have concessions for public chargers in their regions, and we ask them to open the contracts so that they would tone down the amount of energy between 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 9 o'clock in the evening. And we managed to do that just in time. So Utrecht was saved last winter.
Well, also in Utrecht, and we actually featured Robin Berg from We Drive Solar on the Smartery podcast a few months ago, and it's also vehicle-to-grid applications with these shared vehicles that they're integrating into the network. So that's another part of the solution.
Yeah, well, vehicle-to-grid is, I think, next level up from smart charging. And we've been very lucky, I think, to have Robin Berg in Utrecht, to have a fleet of shared vehicles that are possible to charge and to discharge. And they actually save part of Utrecht as well. And currently that's in like a pilot phase in Utrecht and in Eindhoven in the south of the Netherlands. I think we now currently have a fleet of 500 cars.
Yeah, and there's a great potential to scale that solution, to really increase the number of cars participating and really access a lot of flexibility for the electricity network.
Yes, there is a huge possibility, but I think we do also need to solve that at a European level, because now it's just one kind of car with one kind of operator, and we need all cars to be able to charge and discharge at all the charging points. But in order to do that, you need the standards, the technical standards, and also the ways in which you can make business models.
Well,
and
you also have to bring together a lot of very different stakeholders. On a policy level, that must be extremely challenging.
Yeah, well, fortunately, already the power companies and the OEMs, the car makers, were discussing all the technical possibilities. And Germany has really brought the parties together, the coalition of the willing. And we are co-chairing with the Germans to prepare Europe for vehicle-to-grid.
And how confident would you say you are that it will become more widespread with this coalition of the willing and with the Netherlands and Germany leading?
I'm very confident because just 2 weeks ago we had a conference in the Netherlands and the European Commission said, well, thanks everybody for your excellent work. Let's now take over the initiative at the Commission, and they started 4 working groups. And I hope and expect that all the regulation we need will be there in 2 to 3 years, which for a European thing is very, very fast.
Wow, that's a fast track.
Yeah, that's a fast track. Yeah.
So not dissimilar to the way that the Netherlands really jumped in and adopted solar very rapidly. The same is happening with e-mobility, and now the same is happening with grid integration and accessing that flexibility that is possible in e-mobility. It's a good news story.
Yes, I think it is.
Well, thank you very much for sharing it with us on the Smartery podcast. Petrouschka Werther, the Director of Sustainable Mobility for the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management in the Netherlands.
This podcast is a Climate Copy production. Nicole Schäfer is our producer and graphic designer, Ina Gossen, Wolfgang Weicht, and Peggy Herter-Zille from Solar Promotion, support on coordination and marketing. Klaus Schulte directed and edited this special series from Munich this year, and Martin Mostert and Timothy Cowan were our videographers. Be sure to follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you found us. If you're interested in the latest developments in solar energy storage and energy system integration, be sure to check out the Forum Solar Plus, taking place on the 24th to 25th of November in Berlin. Visit Forum Solar Plus website for details on registration and upcoming announcements. Get in touch with feedback, comments, or suggestions at podcast@thesmartery.com. I'm Jonathan Gifford, and thanks for joining me on another episode of the Smartery podcast.